Anyway, it's so good to see you all. I greet you this morning in the name of Jesus Christ, who is Lord and Savior, and I bring you greetings on behalf of your brothers and sisters all throughout the Diocese of Atlanta. That is Middle and North Georgia. 117 churches, more than 50,000 men, women, children, and I like to say feisty seniors. I'm glad to be with you here this morning. Thank you for the privilege. Thank you to your headmaster. Thank you to Chaplain Regan and to Chaplain Molly for this opportunity to be with you. I'm Bishop Wright, and I spend most of my time in the Diocese of Atlanta. Anybody here from Georgia? A few people. Very good. Good. Well, I just want to talk to you briefly. They told me I have 8 minutes, and I'm going to stretch that maybe to 9. They told me that we have a little bit of an opportunity to talk about the lesson, and I think the lesson is really cool today. First of all, we read in the gospel that Jesus is a man of science. How many people realize that? Jesus is a botanist. Jesus looked out at the natural world and he saw God everywhere. Saw God's fingerprints on everything. And so as you and I are growing and having conversations about God, look to nature. Look to nature. There's so much out there to learn. Jesus noticed vines and branches, and he realized that when branches are not connected to the power source, they bear no fruit. No leaves, no fruit, no grapes, no nothing. They're just sort of hanging out, doing nothing. Decoration with no life. And he was using that as an opportunity for us to think about what we're connected to. Are we connected to a power source? This is why I like to talk a lot about God, just not as the bishop, but just as Rob. Because in my own personal life, I've found God to be a power source for me. Power to heal, power to forgive, power to find my way, power to make friends, power to look forward into the future and see hope and opportunity. And so when you found something like that for yourself, you can't help but tell some other folks. And that's all preaching really is there's some experience of goodness that I just got to share, and I feel more like myself when I tell you about a God that I've actually met and encountered. I've actually encountered God, and I bet you have too. That's the drawback of preaching, that only one person gets the microphone. But it's been my experience over many years that when I talk to young people especially, you guys have the best God questions. And so I want to encourage you to continue to ask your questions. Some people worry, if I ask my real God question, will I offend somebody? But I'm asking you to be courageous and be brave and ask your God question, because God questions lead to sort of a new life with God and a new life of thinking about how God is, and a new life of thinking about, where do I land in this world? How do I offer myself to the world? In the next lesson, we learned that a guy by the name of Matthias was the replacement for Judas. You know that story about Judas? Judas is the guy who betrayed Jesus. He took matters into his hands and took his own life. And that makes me sad, because I realize in the world so many people think about suicide a lot. And so I want to say to anybody who's thinking about something as hard as that, you matter. Life is hard, I'm telling you. And maybe it's so hard right now as a teenager that I can't even imagine. But I'm telling you, don't do what Judas did. I'm telling you, there's support for you. There's love for you. We need you. Don't take matters into your hands. I'm telling you that even though it's hard now and dark now, it'll get better. Surround yourself with prayer. Surround yourself with friends. Don't isolate. Talk. I wonder how this story would be different if Judas would have just reached out and told somebody, hey, I'm having a hell of a time here, and I need some love and support. I've made a mistake, but I need some love and support. Did you know that you are more than your worst day, your worst statement, your worst action in God's eyes? That's the good news of God. You are more than your worst mistake. Sometimes in the world we sort of get so hyper-focused on our worst day or our worst statement or our worst mistake, and we think that's the end. But the good news of God is there's more. There's more. There's more. So I'm speaking directly to somebody right now who is struggling, and I'm telling you, don't take matters into your own hands. I know that temptation is great. Don't do it. We need you. We love you. We've got your back. We know what it feels like. We're right beside you. but you just got to reach out. Just say something. So Matthias shows up and replaces Judas. Anybody here know what it feels like to be new? I remember when I was a brand new bishop, I was faking it. I got to tell you, I didn't know what to do. You know, where do you wear the hat? You know, I don't have my hat today. You know, when do you use the stick? And when do you do this? And of course, as soon as people make you the bishop, they think that you know everything. They think that somehow, cosmically, everything God ever did or said and everything Jesus ever did or said is magically downloaded to your brain. This is not the truth. Anybody know what it feels like to be new? Yeah. And so I think about Matthias. Wow, that must have been hard. But then I think about Matthias in light of Jesus' words, especially at those intersections when you're new and disoriented and confused and feeling like an imposter. Go to the power source. Last night I had an opportunity, a privilege to talk to the class of 2020, and I tried to remind them some sage words from a guy by the name of Howard Thurman. And those words are this: listen for the sound of the genuine. God is not out here. God is in here. God is right here. God is closer to you than your breath. God is closer to you than your synapses firing. God is right here. And if you can listen, that's the power source. There is nobody in this world like you. Think about it. You're unique. We need you to be you, especially when you're new. With your new eyes and your new perspective and your new questions and your new thoughts. To think about it, the apostles were not whole until they got the new guy on board. Once they got the new guy on board, they could do the next thing. And because they did the next thing right down 2,000 years, here we are. The next people in the parade. The next people trying to do good in the world, informed by their example. That's a great opportunity for us. And then the last movement in the story comes from the book of Acts. Did you see that story? Where Jesus, after the resurrection, after all the teaching, after all the fish fries, after all the parties, right? Jesus now ascends to heaven. And what did the disciples do? They've been hanging out with Jesus for 3 years. They've been watching him take on the demons, take on the devils, feed people, include people, stop a minute in his busy life and talk to children, talk to young people and get their perspective. That's what Jesus did. For 3 years, they've been watching him calm storms, do all kinds of things. And now it's time for him to go. People get really worried around times of transition. It's like they forget everything they've just seen and learned. So Jesus gets elevated, there he goes. And then if you listen to the story, all of his friends, all his disciples, who were his boys, to the left and to the right, they're watching him. Now, he never told them in 3 years, just stand there looking up. And if you read the story, what happens next? An angel shows up and says, "Men of Galilee, what are you looking at?" I love that. I love that. I preach a sermon on that story called "It's Easier to Gaze Than It Is to Go." And so that's what I want to say to you. There's a great temptation whenever we're sort of talking about God to sort of just think upwardly. But the great gift of Jesus is that he democratized leadership. Did you hear me? Jesus had an idea about leadership. Anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere. You don't have to be a chaplain or a headmaster or a faculty member or an administration member or a bishop. In Jesus' economy, anybody can lead. And leadership is not simply a role, leadership is behavior. Leadership is behavior. Leadership is finding a way to be candid and kind. Leadership is not being self-centered. Leadership is being other-centered. Leadership is having the sight to see the gaps and filling the gaps with your own hands, your own commitments, and your own hearts. I wonder, are there any leaders in the room today? That was a question.
Yeah.
Leadership is a privilege. It's a privilege. It means you and I find the capacity to say, hey, come on, use our popularity for good. Any popular people here? Of course, you're not going to self-identify. But your popularity is a gift. Your charisma is a gift. Your athleticism is a gift. Your intellect is a gift. Your beauty is a gift. Your kindness is a gift. Why don't you use it for good? Why don't you use it to make a difference? Why don't you use it to make the school better? God is a great gift giver, and he doesn't want us just sort of stand and gaze up or gaze in the mirror. He wants us to go. Jesus never asked to be venerated. Jesus asked to be replicated. He never asked for beautiful buildings to be built. He asked for us to build up one another. He asked us to do the most difficult thing there is to do, and that is to love one another. Chaplain Wally asked me to come here and to talk about the beloved community, and that's the last thing I'll say. We are the beloved community here at St. Andrew's because we are beloved of God. And we can make this community even more beloved when you and I decide that everybody's going to feel beloved and honored and listened to in this place. And that starts today, perhaps all over again, in big and small ways, being kind to people. Why? Because God has been kind to us. Being thoughtful with people. Why? Because God is thinking of us. To forgive other people. Why? Because you and I have been forgiven. This is the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. This has nothing to do with religion. Hello, somebody. Some people get stuck in the ghetto of religious thought. I don't think Jesus ever said anything about religion. What he said was, how do you live your life? He never said, I'll judge you, or I'll shame you, or I'll guilt you. He said, I'll invite you. He said, even at the bottom, you won't break. With me, you'll bounce. And that's who we are. We're the buoyant people in the world who offer buoyance and effervescence to other people. We do this not because we're good, but because good has come to visit us. That's a great opportunity. It's a gift. I want you to just stand in it. Don't gaze, go. Be the new person. Stand in it. Don't gaze, go. Don't isolate. Let down, leave down your loneliness. Pick up, stand in community. Be a friend to somebody. Let somebody be a friend to you. You never know. God is standing right there looking for a partner in you. This is leadership. Thank you very much for this opportunity and privilege to be with you on this morning. God bless you. Keep up the good work.